Here's what you missed in the last 21 hours. You had 33 videos worth catching up on, covering everything from China's AI dominance and GitHub's mounting problems to new car loan crisis data and some surprisingly impressive tech demos. Starting with what might be the most urgent story of the day, Matthew Berman was genuinely alarmed about America's AI future, arguing we're facing a stark binary choice with no middle ground. He laid out how the economics of open-source AI are fundamentally broken. In the US, American companies spend enormous resources developing models, only to watch competitors serve inference with better margins since they didn't bear the development costs. Meanwhile, China succeeds because their government strategically subsidizes companies to be globally competitive, often anti-competitively. The timing is critical because US businesses are making AI strategy decisions right now, comparing expensive proprietary models from OpenAI and Anthropic against cheaper Chinese alternatives like Deepseek that are nearly as good. Since 99% of business use cases involve spreadsheets, coding, and scheduling rather than frontier mathematics, these Chinese models become obvious choices. Berman surveyed the US landscape and found it grim. Meta abandoned open source entirely over the past year. OpenAI pivoted away once they realized capital requirements. Anthropic has zero open source strategy. His potential white knight is NVIDIA, who's investing $26 billion in open source AI because their business model actually works. When competitors serve NVIDIA-created models, they're still using NVIDIA chips. The risks of Chinese dominance are severe. China would dictate AI standards, optimize for their own chips, potentially force US companies to buy Chinese AI hardware, plus subtle cultural biases baked into black box models. Berman's solutions included federal grants, treating open source as national infrastructure with tax credits, and focusing on vertical applications rather than competing with general closed-source models. The AI Lab Power Rankings provide another lens on this competition. The AI Daily Brief host analyzed the Microsoft OpenAI partnership restructuring. Microsoft remains primary, but no longer exclusive cloud partner, allowing OpenAI to serve on Oz. The revenue sharing continues through 2030, but is no longer conditional on pre-AGI status, removing a clause that could have ended the deal. OpenAI immediately launched on AWS with GPT-5.4 in limited preview and GPT-5.5 coming within weeks. The host created the first AI Lab Power Rankings using 9 categories, with his human rankings notably harsher than AI model assessments. Only 3 labs scored above 70. Tied at 74 were OpenAI and Google, followed by Anthropic at 70. He gave Google significant advantage on compute, because owning infrastructure beats depending on financing deals, but scored them lowest on momentum despite strong positioning, because they've struggled with agentic and coding use cases. On enterprise positioning, he scored Anthropic highest, arguing incumbency matters less in AI transformation and enterprises prefer going direct to leading model labs rather than through distributors like Microsoft. Speaking of the enterprise landscape, Nate Jones from AI News and Strategy Daily provided a comprehensive framework for evaluating the constant stream of agent launches. He was clearly exhausted with the hype cycle, noting that team leaders he knows are feeling exhaustion rather than excitement about launches like OpenAI's Workspace agents, Anthropic's Claude managed agents, Salesforce's Headless 360, and Moonshot's 300 agent swarms. His central thesis was that the conversation has shifted from model quality to infrastructure. The launches that matter aren't necessarily those with the best benchmarks, but those that change what existing tools can reach. He introduced a 5-question filter. Does this plug into tools my team already uses? Does it let other agents build on top? Does it own or access data I care about? Is there an ecosystem forming? Can I stack my agents on top? Salesforce Headless 360 scored extremely well. It exposes every major Salesforce capability as APIs, MCP tools, or CLI commands with 60+ new MCP tools and 30+ pre-configured coding skills. Parker Harris asked, why should you ever log into Salesforce again? The strategy includes support for Claude Code, Cursor, Codex, and Windsurf, plus an agent exchange marketplace. Jones called this what infrastructure looks like in the agent era. His final framework emphasized filtering for infrastructure over features, ecosystems over DEMOS, stackability over walled gardens, and data access over benchmark charts. On the technical implementation side, RJ McCandless walked through building agentic AI systems from basics to production-ready deployments. He was enthusiastic about demonstrating a travel agent that could plan trips to Japan using tools like Find Places and Review Itinerary, but quickly shifted to discussing failure modes that occur when you add more components. Web searches fail, external APIs have issues, and you need custom scaffolding including state management, failure recovery, logging, and retry mechanisms. He characterized this as familiar territory for distributed systems engineers. When he simulated a tool failure, the agent completely stopped working without proper retry mechanisms, requiring custom logging to even understand what went wrong. His solution was AgentSpan, a runtime that doesn't replace existing code, but manages agent execution and failure scenarios. In the demo, he showed how AgentSpan automatically handled retry when the Find Places tool initially failed, but succeeded on retry. The end-user experience remained smooth despite underlying failure. For production architecture, he outlined a standard web application setup where backend servers interact with separately hosted AgentSpan servers that manage agent runtimes, handling agent restarts, tool call failures, and scenarios requiring multi-day waits for human approval. OpenAI's developer experience team showcased how Codex has evolved from basic coding agent to comprehensive software engineering platform. Vaibhav Srivastav and Katia Guzman were genuinely excited about hitting 3 million weekly active users, tripled since January. They demonstrated plugins extensively bundles that combine skills, apps, and MCP servers into unified workflows. Katia showed a game development example using the Game Studio plugin, which leveraged ImageGen for sprites and Playwright Interactive for debugging, creating a complete platformer game without manual intervention. Automations emerged as her favorite feature, background processes running on schedules like cron jobs for daily Slack summaries and Gmail filtering. But Vaibhav devoted substantial time to code review capabilities, making bold claims about industry leadership quality. The system works across GitHub, CLI, and now Claude Code plugin, creating separate review threads with specialized prompts and analyzing entire repositories for second-order effects. Notably, 100% of OpenAI employee pull requests, including Greg's, are reviewed by Codex by default. Subagents were Vaibhav's passion project, decomposing master tasks into parallel, independent subtasks. He demonstrated reviewing 45+ persona files by spinning up 20 parallel reviewers, with Codex automatically entering, plan mode, and partitioning work appropriately. The OpenAI team also demonstrated Workspace agents in ChatGPT during their build hour session. Victoria, Christina, and Ho Jun were highly professional and enthusiastic, positioning these as Codex-powered agents for complex, long-running work spanning multiple systems. Ho Jun's DEMOS were particularly compelling. He built a meeting prep agent named Otto that checks his calendar daily, researches customers via web and Google Drive, and emails formatted meeting briefs each morning, saving hours of manual prep work. The build process started with natural language description, and ChatGPT automatically created an agent plan, configured scheduling, apps, and instructions. The second demo focused on a software review agent for handling employee software requests in Slack, which researches vendor capabilities, compares against approved software stacks, and provides guidance or escalates to it. Ho Jun emphasized its real-world impact at OpenAI, saving IT team time while reducing duplicate tool spending. The live Slack demonstration showed the agent determining IT review was needed for Screen Studio software, explaining that an approved alternative was overutilized with no available licenses, and automatically creating a Jira ticket for IT review. Available in Research Preview for Business, Enterprise, EDU plans, free until May 6th, then credit-based pricing. OpenAI also introduced GPT-5.5 with Databricks, showing a 46% error reduction compared to GPT-5.4 when operating in agent harness settings. The presenter was confident when highlighting that it's the only model currently achieving above 50% performance on their benchmark. Databricks built this around their Office QA system for processing really messy-looking documents that customers frequently bring, requiring sophisticated parsing integrated with multi-agent setups. The critical differentiator between GPT-5.4 and GPT-5.5 lies specifically in parsing quality improvements. Earlier models consistently failed to parse digits correctly, a fundamental limitation for document processing. GPT-5.5 overcame this with what they termed a stepwise function lift, suggesting a quantum leap rather than incremental progress. Looking forward, they expect significant customer adoption of Agentbricks and the Agent Supervisor API, with GPT-5.5 serving as the ideal supervising model for custom agent workflows. Moving to practical deployment challenges, Alex Ziskind highlighted how Mac Mini base models are completely sold out due to OpenClaw AI agent demand, leading to $1,500 plus scalping prices in areas like Washington, D.C. He was clearly frustrated about the shortage and scalping situation, but introduced Abacus as a solution hosted OpenClaw that eliminates the need to buy hardware, install frameworks, wire up API keys, expose systems to the internet safely, and maintain patches. He demonstrated Abacus Claw successfully tackling a challenging task, checking Mac Mini availability on Apple's JavaScript-heavy website, which impressed him. He then set up a complex content repurposing workflow that automatically converts blog posts dropped into Telegram into Twitter and LinkedIn posts, then saves them to a Notion database. The dashboard features model selection from open-source models like Kimi K2 to frontier models like Claude Opus 4.6. Alex concluded with a nuanced evaluation, acknowledging that for most people, Abacus Claw is good because the gap between wanting an agent and actually running a secure, monitored 24/7 agent is substantial. He emphasized security concerns about self-hosted agents with access to email and tools on local networks exposed to the internet, calling them bigger targets than most people can defend. On the frustration side, Manilo Remidi shared his exhaustion with OpenClaw's constant instability and announced his pivot to building Resonant OS, a sovereign AI system that works independently while using other AI agents as workers. He was genuinely frustrated with waking up to broken systems, explaining how OpenClaw breaks with almost every update, often overnight without explanation. While acknowledging OpenClaw offered unique capabilities like total machine control, cron jobs, and the ability to function without constant human presence, he identified a core problem with the development cycle. The original designer left, leaving a foundation trying to preserve the original DNA rather than rebuilding from scratch. His new architecture features an internal agent called Argumentor, a high-level, always-present AI that understands the full architecture and can delegate tasks to external agents at a managerial level. The system includes a panic button that activates a local AI model whose sole job is bringing larger models back online. He also introduced the Resonant DAO concept, where users receive NFTs providing co-ownership rights, enabling community building through an SDK for creating add-ons while leveraging blockchain technology for building parallel financial systems. Emily Bitch from Modern Software Engineering provided crucial insight into why AI tools are making good teams faster, but making struggling teams perform worse. She was measured, but clearly frustrated with developers expecting AI to magically fix poor processes, using an extended analogy about a jazz trombonist who fixed back pain by addressing posture rather than getting a lighter trombone. She detailed what she calls coding-driven development, the most common pre-AI process where developers read tickets, dive into code bases, type code, run tests, and eventually add unit tests. When you hang a huge trombone, an AI tool, onto this process, developers often give the AI the ticket text and ask it to fix everything, which sometimes works but often fails because work items aren't small enough or code bases are too disorganized. She contrasted this with applying AI to a TDD process, drawing from conversations with half a dozen trusted TDD practitioners who now write little to no code by hand. The TDD with AI process begins with understanding problems thoroughly, sketching development plans, and using agentic AI to combine the red and green steps of TDD. The key difference is much more frequent commits with cycle times measured in minutes, not hours, providing numerous benefits while producing higher quality code and tests. She concluded that people getting the most from agentic AI tools are those starting from solid engineering processes with a TDD mindset. Shifting to infrastructure concerns, Maximilian Schwarzmuller was clearly frustrated and alarmed about GitHub's mounting problems. He called the situation dire and really bad, starting with a remote code execution vulnerability discovered by security company Wiz. This worked through standard git push commands using push option features, where attackers could attach extra metadata to exstat headers that GitHub failed to sanitize, allowing code execution on GitHub servers with access to other repositories, including private ones. Beyond this specific incident, he highlighted an April 23 merge queue incident where internal logic errors caused the system to create invalid commits that damaged Git history. The underlying issue is AI-driven traffic increases, vastly more projects being created, and code being pushed to GitHub. GitHub planned for 10x capacity increases in October 2025, but realized they needed 30x capacity by February 2026. A critical organizational problem is that GitHub no longer has a CEO. Thomas Dohmke stepped down in August 2025, and Microsoft made GitHub part of Core AI, their internal AI division. This represents a strategic shift toward making GitHub an AI-powered platform rather than a general development platform. The AI focus creates particular problems for open-source maintainers who are drowning in AI-generated issues and pull requests, with no good tools to manage the asymmetry between easy AI generation and time-consuming human review. For developers navigating this changing landscape, Stefan Mischuk argued that junior developers can find work in 2026 by pivoting to AI-focused development rather than traditional frameworks like React. He was confidently authoritative, drawing on his experience since 1994 to establish credibility and showing frustration with developers who resist change. He drew parallels to how traditional developers resisted web technology in the 1990s and C++ developers initially rejected Java, emphasizing that while older developers had legitimate criticisms, the transformative nature made adaptation necessary. Stefan positioned 2026 as experiencing a paradigm shift comparable to previous major changes, with AI being the current transformative force. 5 to 6 years ago, React was the key skill for junior developers, but today it's the AI stack. Understanding frontier versus local models, agentic development, custom GPTs, model advantages and disadvantages, and orchestration. He introduced harness development as the broad term for work done outside building models themselves, expressing excitement about AI enabling previously impossible implementations. He estimated 3/4 of his recent AI implementations couldn't have been done with traditional software, calling these AI-only possible implementations beyond the 5-10x speed improvement AI provides for traditional app development. Moving to infrastructure and model training. While I couldn't access the full transcript for Maxime Labonne's talk on training frontier small models at Liquid AI, this represents an important trend toward efficient model architectures that deliver strong performance without the massive resource requirements of the largest models. Similarly, Paige Bailey's Google DeepMind presentation on building and deploying AI-powered apps wasn't accessible in full transcript form. But given her role, this likely covered important developments in Google's AI tooling and deployment infrastructure. However, we did get deep technical insight from Reiner Pope on how GPT-5, Claude, and Gemini are actually trained and served. Pope was methodical and analytical, working through calculations to explain fundamental trade-offs between latency, cost, and batch size that determine API pricing. He introduced roofline analysis and explained that for any inference operation, total time must be greater than both compute time and memory fetch time. When graphing batch size versus time, you get 3 curves. Compute time is linear, KV fetch time is linear, and wait fetch time is constant. The optimal batch size formula is approximately 300 times the sparsity ratio. For Deepseek v3 with its mixture of experts, this yields around 2,000-3,000 tokens per batch. This analysis explains the train departure model for inference. Systems run fixed batch sizes every 15-20 milliseconds regardless of demand. He connected this to training economics, proposing that optimal models equalize compute costs across pre-training, RL training, and inference, suggesting current frontier models are trained on roughly 100x more tokens than Chinchilla Optimal. The 50% price increase for Gemini's long contexts at 200K tokens likely reflects the transition from compute-limited to memory bandwidth-limited regimes, while input tokens being 5x cheaper than output tokens indicates that decode is heavily memory bandwidth bottlenecked, while prefill is more compute-limited. The AI for Humans hosts pushed back against claims that the AI bubble is popping based on Wall Street Journal reports about OpenAI's slowing growth. Kevin and Gavin were confident and dismissive of bubble-popping claims, arguing that while there may be financial froth around AI companies, underlying technology capabilities continue advancing rapidly. Kevin explained the financial pressures facing OpenAI. They've raised $125 billion in private funding while being on track to spend $600 billion on future infrastructure, with only about 3 years of runway at current burn rates. They noted the circular nature of AI company funding where Oracle pays OpenAI, OpenAI pays NVIDIA, and NVIDIA pays Oracle. However, they emphasized that 3 years represents significant time in AI development, pointing out that most programmers now do majority of their coding with AI assistance, a shift that happened in just 1 year. They showcased recent developments including Tom Cruise deepfake videos, OpenAI's Chappie demo showing real-time voice integration with web browsers, Claude's integration with Blender for natural language 3D modeling, and NVIDIA's Nematron 3 Nano Omni designed for phones with true multimodal capabilities. They also covered the Talkie LLM, created by original ChatGPT engineer Alec Radford, trained exclusively on text from 1931 or earlier, creating an AI that speaks and thinks like someone from that era. On the tooling front, Claude Code received a massive update with 32 new features and 71 bug fixes. The presenter was crisp and efficient in covering the improvements, clearly understanding the developer pain points these fixes address. The headline improvements include persistent/config settings with project, local, and policy precedence hierarchy, PowerShell replacing Git for Windows, and Headless Claude Ultra-Review capabilities for running non-interactively from scripts or CI jobs. Performance improvements included removing the recent activity panel entirely for faster cold start times, fixing memory leaks in image processing and long-running tools, and addressing scroll jumping issues in full-screen mode. The plugin system received real polish with the new Claude plugin prune command for removing orphan dependencies, automatic retry functionality for MCP servers with startup errors up to 3 attempts, and auto-updating for version-constrained plugins. Networking improvements included proper no-proxy environment variable support, MCP HTTP, and OAuth resilience improvements. And for enterprise users, Vertex AI now supports X509 WIF authentication, while Bedrock gained service tier environment variables. In creative tools, Google released Flow Music, a free AI music tool that creates full songs from text prompts. The teacher's tech presenter was enthusiastic and encouraging, particularly excited about the voice mode feature where users can press and hold a key to speak directly to the AI conversationally. The tool generates 2 versions simultaneously while creating cover art, taking about a minute to complete, with users able to modify existing songs by requesting changes like add different type of vocals or slow it down. Beyond basic generation, Flow Music includes flows saved prompts accessible via /commands for repeated styles, and spaces, which create interactive audio applications beyond simple songs. The presenter demonstrated creating a weather-based ambient music tool with sliders for rain, wind, and thunder that users could adjust in real time. Free users receive 500 credits daily plus 30 for logging in, with instrumental songs costing about 10 credits and vocal songs costing 15-30 credits, meaning free users can create several songs daily without payment. From Microsoft's SXSW presence, John Mita shared his third tip. Keep a clean Molt, drawing parallels between AI systems and animals that shed skin or Marie Kondo's decluttering philosophy. He was conversational and accessible, connecting agentic AI systems to the concept of periodic context clearing to avoid context pollution. His point was that when context becomes too large, the model doesn't work very well. So AI systems should actively forget things rather than accumulate everything. He used a human analogy. Imagine if you woke up in the morning and remembered everything in your entire life, you can't function. The practical application for developers building agentic systems is to avoid letting them accumulate all this stuff, and instead design them to spark joy and let things go, implementing selective memory management or periodic context clearing. In hardware news, the MacBook Ultra will launch in early 2026 with 7 major upgrades according to Max Tech. The presenter was enthusiastic throughout, particularly excited about the tandem OLED display and 5G connectivity. The complete redesign promises to be thinner and lighter, addressing current MacBook thickness compared to competitors like the Razer Blade 16. The tandem OLED display uses 2 displays working together at lower power levels, virtually eliminating burn-in issues while providing more vibrant colors, better contrast, and perfectly deep blacks. The M6 Pro and Max chips will use TSMC's new 2nm technology with architectural changes, including removing 6 of 12 performance cores and rebranding them as super cores, eliminating efficiency cores and replacing them with 12 new mid-cores. For the first time on any Mac, touchscreen support includes dynamic UI buttons that adjust when touching the display for touch-friendly interfaces, automatically switching back when using trackpad or mouse. The notch will be replaced by Dynamic Island from iPhones, enabling thinner bezels, while 5G cellular support uses Apple's custom C2 or C2X modem for efficiency. Pricing is expected to be approximately 20% higher than current models. Looking toward AGI, Demis Hassabis shared his 2030 timeline and identified missing pieces like continual learning, long-term reasoning, and memory systems. He was measured and thoughtful throughout, genuinely enthusiastic about DeepMind's innovations while maintaining realistic expectations. He believes existing components like large-scale pre-training, RLAIF, and chain of thought will be part of the final AGI architecture, but identified key gaps. On continual learning, he criticized current approaches as duct tape solutions like shoving everything into context windows, drawing from neuroscience background to explain how the brain gracefully integrates new knowledge through REM sleep and hippocampal replay. He emphasized that agents are essential for AGI. You need active systems that can solve problems autonomously, make decisions and plans. DeepMind's reinforcement learning heritage focused on agent systems from Atari to AlphaGo to StarCraft with AlphaStar. And today's leading models with thinking modes are aspects of what was pioneered with AlphaGo returning at scale. For building at the frontier, he offered 3 insights. Attacking hard, deep problems is no more difficult than shallow ones. Interdisciplinary work will become more important. And crucially, anyone starting a deep tech journey today must consider AGI appearing midway through, since builders need to plan for AGI around 2030 and consider how to leverage it in their systems. On accessibility, Frank Elavsky, from his former Visa engineering role, delivered an engaging presentation about why developers need to understand accessibility before jumping to implementation. He was passionate but pragmatic, using interactive demonstrations showing how visual perception outperforms language processing, then revealing how most data visualizations exclude people with disabilities. At Visa, supporting 200 billion transactions yearly across 200 data products for 2,000 developers, he found that when accessibility is automated and always on, developers think about it less, degrading thoughtful consideration. He demonstrated a screen reader navigating a 2020 election visualization that announced only image, image, image instead of meaningful data. With over 25% of Americans self-reporting disabilities affecting daily life, including 4.1% with color vision deficiency and 4.5% with blindness low vision, he emphasized the curb cut effect. Accessibility improvements often benefit everyone. His Chartability workbook provides free accessibility testing tools, and he demonstrated finding nearly 1,000 accessibility barriers in CNN visualizations within an hour. Key principles include perceivability with 4.5.1 contrast ratio requirements, operability ensuring keyboard navigation works for all interactive elements, and understandability targeting US Grade 9 reading level. He showcased his Data Navigator project using graph structures rather than tree structures to enable complex navigation patterns between related data points. In open source developments, the Devuin project has forked GTK2 to create a maintained version of the old toolkit. Lunjuk was genuinely excited about this, calling it phenomenal and describing it as potentially enabling GNOME 2 to run on modern systems as a dream come true. The fork represents GTK2 as it existed during the GNOME 2 desktop environment era when it was fast, lean, light, and well-tested, allowing continued building and supporting of GTK2-based software including Xlibra. A developer paused his seamless DevOps project to fix GTK2, adding 2 patches from Arch user repository maintainers, implementing Stefan 111's QSort, and fixing compiler warnings. Future plans include backporting improvements from other GTK2 forks, eliminating bugs, testing with GCC 15, finding a new name, leading suggestion is the good toolkit, and potentially changing to GPL 3 license. Lunjuk positioned this within a broader trend of people revolting against newer technologies like Wayland and Rust being forced upon them, questioning why existing, well-functioning APIs need replacement. His vision involves combining the best software from Linux's entire lifespan, updating it for modern maintenance, while keeping current advantages to create lightweight, well-designed systems. On hardware builds, Wendell from Level 1 Techs built a dual GPU system in Fractal's new POP2 Vision case, testing cooling performance with AMD's latest X3D CPU and 64 GB of VRAM across 2 AI-focused GPUs. He maintained his characteristic measured technical enthusiasm, genuinely impressed with the motherboard's quick-release GPU mechanism, and excited about 64 GB VRAM capabilities for AI experiments. The X870E Yorus Master X3D ICE motherboard features AMD's new X3D2 processor with dual 3D V-cache, along with 2 AI TOPS R9700 cards, essentially 9700 XT variants with 32 GB VRAM each instead of 16 GB. The case design accommodates 4 fans with metal dust filters, using front, side, and bottom for intake, with reverse airflow fans to hide wiring. Torture testing with CPU and GPU-bound AI workloads reached 43 dB with 8 fans running at 1800 RPM, producing whooshing air rather than whining. CPU temperatures peaked at 95 degrees C without thermal throttling, while GPUs hit 90 degrees C, normal for blower coolers. Each GPU consumes approximately 300 W, making blower design beneficial for heat extraction versus traditional open-air coolers that would dump more heat into the case. In gaming industry criticism, Bellular News examined how companies like AAA publisher Krafton are adopting disposable games strategies where they intentionally make cheap games expecting them to fail, only supporting massive hits. The presenter was genuinely frustrated and angry, particularly with Krafton's behavior, calling them shitheads for their treatment of developers and customers. Krafton killed PUBG Blindspot just 2 months after launch despite 70% positive Steam reviews and plans for 12 months of early access development. This was Krafton's intentional strategy. They told investors they wanted to build PUBG into a massive brand using smaller teams, making smaller games on quick turnaround, enabling early or targeted releases, allowing teams to quickly validate a game's potential before committing additional resources. Despite making over $700 million profit last year, they're not driven by survival, but maximizing returns. The escalation brings mobile game tactics to PC via Steam Early Access, unlike mobile betas that never reach public release. Blindspot was a full Steam Early Access game, sold with promises of community-driven development that Crafton broke just 2 months in. This damages PC gaming because communities track publisher behavior differently than mobile audiences, eroding trust systemically when big companies treat audiences poorly and break commitments. In financial concerns, CarEdge revealed America's car loan crisis just got worse with Q1 2026 data. The hosts maintained a serious, concerned tone, genuinely alarmed by the severity of numbers, showing 30.9% of car trade-ins had negative equity averaging $7,183, the worst on record. The average age of vehicles with negative equity being traded was 4.3 years, the highest on record, contradicting normal expectations where holding cars longer should lead to positive equity. Of new loans involving negative equity trade-ins, 90.2% were 72 months or longer, with 43% being 84 months or longer. These borrowers face a triple whammy of higher loan amounts, longer terms, and higher interest rates, financing almost $56,000 on average with monthly payments of $932. Beyond Edmunds data, subprime auto loan delinquencies hit all-time highs since tracking began in 1994. Cox Automotive reported almost 2 million repossessions in 2024, highest since 2009, and used car prices rising rather than falling. The hosts concluded this represents potential bubble territory, with structural problems creating a destructive cycle where customers become unable to return for new purchases due to being trapped in negative equity. In electric vehicle developments, Dream, a vacuum company, unveiled a supercar with revolutionary claims, but the electric Viking was highly skeptical. Sam Evans oscillated between fascination and disbelief about the Nebula Next One Jet Edition, claiming 0-100 acceleration in 0.9 seconds via dual solid rocket boosters, 450 plus Wh/kg solid-state batteries, and advanced autonomous driving. He was excited about theoretical possibilities, but maintained persistent doubt, calling the combination of firsts a massive red flag. The 0.9-second acceleration comes from rocket boosters with 150 millisecond response time and 100 kilonewton thrust output. The battery claims center on sulfide-based solid-state batteries exceeding 450 watt-hours per kilogram, unprecedented since current market leaders achieve around 300 Wh/kg. However, Evans questioned why range is only 550 kilometers CLTC with such energy-dense batteries. The DHX-1 LiDAR offers 4,320 lines with 600-meter detection range, 400-meter object identification, and can detect traffic cones at 300 meters. Sebastian Thrun attended the launch, praising Dream's cross-boundary innovation. But Evans concluded this combination of technological firsts from a vacuum company strains credibility, speculating they might be showcasing theoretical capabilities planned for 3 years out. Ford CEO Jim Farley claimed BYD, not Tesla, is the EV company Americans should study, but Evans argued this is misguided given BYD's recent struggles. He was skeptical and clearly disagreed with Farley's assessment, noting Ford lost around $20 billion in EV write-downs or $35 billion total accumulated losses, while Tesla actually made money. Farley pointed to BYD as having the best cost structure, competition approach, and supply chain for the next wave of customers wanting $30,000 pickups and utilities. However, Evans immediately challenged this by revealing BYD's first quarter profit fell 55% year-on-year to only $594 million, while revenue dropped 12% and sales were down 30%. More significantly, BYD's plug-in hybrid sales declined for 9 straight months. Evans criticized BYD's strategy of offering 72 different models as creating customer confusion, comparing it to walking into a store with 70 options where even automotive analysts would struggle to make decisions. He contrasted this with Tesla achieving massive sales with just 2 models, calling it insane that the Model Y would likely be the world's best-selling car again despite not being new. Evans positioned this within broader industry context where major automakers' profits are shrinking. Porsche, Volkswagen Group, Audi, Mercedes, Stellantis, and Ford, questioning whether fighting in this declining traditional auto market was smart versus focusing on AI and autonomous driving. Chinese automaker Chery suggested Australia should restart car manufacturing with government support and robotics, but Evans was skeptical and irritated throughout. He bristled at the suggestion, calling it extreme naivety from Chery International President Zhang Guibing, whose broken English Evans found embarrassing. Zhang acknowledged high Australian manufacturing costs, expensive labor, taxes, and complex supply chains compared to China and Southeast Asia, with his solution involving heavy automation with robots requiring government policy changes. Evans argued the proposal fundamentally misunderstands modern car manufacturing, emphasizing that assembly plants represent only 10% of automotive production, while the real challenge is the 90% represented by complex supplier networks. When Ford announced closures in 2013, Australian manufacturing costs were double Europe's and 4 times Asia's, leading to shutdowns. General Motors Holden in 2017, Toyota in 2014. Evans noted that if Australia restarted car manufacturing, the government would need tariffs to protect the industry, making cars 20–30% more expensive like in Germany compared to Australia's current tariff-free market that benefits consumers. He questioned Chery's motives, noting they've created 11 brands recently and suggested this proposal might be distraction from other activities. Moving to education and community building, SmartyRBX announced weekly free development classes through their Discord server, Smarty Devs, covering scripting, building, modeling, UI design, and animation for Roblox development. He was enthusiastic and community-focused, genuinely excited about expanding the Discord server's role with over 20,000 developers. He made his core argument that live classes matter over just watching videos because viewers can't ask questions directly when they get stuck, while live classes provide real-time interaction, discussions, and the ability to show work to other participants. Beyond classes, he emphasized networking opportunities, mentioning voice chats where he personally joins for one-on-one conversations. He made a broader philosophical point about the importance of social connections in development work, arguing that talking to other developers is equally important as practicing technical skills. He criticized the tendency to ignore the social side because people think the skills are all that matter, calling this total nonsense, since humans are naturally social creatures. The server includes a marketplace where developers can hire others or get hired for commissions, with him promising increased activity and personal presence going forward. Finally, there was a somewhat off-topic video promoting video transcription as flexible online income, with the presenter maintaining an upbeat, promotional tone about earning $10.50 plus per audio hour. They define transcription as converting audio content from videos, interviews, lectures, and webinars into written documents for accessibility and archiving. Essential tools include quality headphones, comfortable keyboards, and reliable internet, with platforms like Rev, GoTranscript, and TranscribeMe offering opportunities. Pay varies based on typing speed, accuracy, and audio complexity, with beginners expecting $10.25 per audio hour and experienced transcriptionists earning $50+ per audio hour. Though this represents payment per hour of audio content, not hourly wages, since transcription takes significantly longer than actual audio duration. That's your comprehensive catch-up for the last 21 hours. The big themes were China's AI dominance concerns, infrastructure challenges across GitHub and development tools, and the ongoing maturation of AI agents moving from Demis to production deployments. We'll keep tracking these developments as they unfold.